Welcome to a special edition of Saving the Association. Today, Brett and I are joined by a very special guest. Let's preface it with a few of these accolades. We're talking about an Iowa State first team All American, Big 12 Player of the Year award, drafted fourth by Brett's own Chicago Bulls,
Woo-hoo.
where he was all rookie second team and went on to play for three NBA teams over the course of 6 years. None other than Marcus Fizer
The
Sr.
Marcus Fizer.
Yes. Welcome,
How's
man.
it going,
Great to
fellas?
have you. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Honor. Thanks.
Did we omit any accolades? I'm sure there's some high school stuff in there we didn't cover.
I mean, it's a ton of stuff. I mean, was McDonald All-American, first McDonald All-American to go to Iowa State.
Okay.
Freshman of the year, Big 12, a lot of different things, but that's all in the past. It was fun while it lasted. Now I'm focused on getting these knees and ankles revved up to make it up and down my stairs every day.
I love it. I love it. I got to say, it's honestly a little surreal because growing up, I was the resident Utah Jazz fan, and Brett was the Chicago Bulls fan. And he came in right after like the golden years of MJ, Pippen, and everybody. And he was like, dude, I love Eddie Curry. I love Ben Gordon. I love you name it, right? Like Andres Nocioni. He was naming these random dudes that I only knew because that's all Brett would talk about until this guy came along at the fourth pick named Marcus Fizer. He's like,
Man,
this guy.
it was tough though. It was tough following up that. I mean, people don't understand how hard it was to follow up like that dynasty in Chicago. You got to understand, like being an instant millionaire at the age of 21 in Chicago, with a lot of other knuckleheads who just got drafted. Man, we were just everywhere. We didn't know how to play basketball. We definitely know how to play basketball on a pro level, although we had talent. And I think the oldest guy on the team at the time was Fred Hoiberg, and he was like 26, 27.
Yeah.
So it's like, we vying for a lot of time, not knowing they're trying to teach us the triangle offense. It was just a whole lot of different things. At that age, to be honest, you're trying to learn how to be a pro. Trying not to go crazy in a city like Chicago. I mean, you have the means to do anything that you want. It was just a lot of bad basketball. And now that I've gotten older, I see why a lot of older teams struggle. Younger teams struggle. Now you see where after a couple of years, you get a couple of vets. Teams like Oklahoma City can do what they're doing now because, you get some good vets in that know how to play the game and teach you some things. But, yeah, we were really bad early. And, unfortunately, we didn't win enough games to have any kind of relevance in that Bulls history. But, overall, it was a great experience to be a part of. But following up behind MJ and Scotty and those championship years was tough.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's a tough feat, especially when everyone associates Chicago with that for the longest time, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm sure that was a challenge. Hey, speaking of super relevant basketball, the playoffs are here, right? We've got the play-in games are going to wrap up this weekend, and then we start with some matchups going into Easter weekend with some fantastic lineups. Brett and I are both really excited about a few in particular, but we're going to kind of talk about what our favorite or most, what we're most excited about as far as matchups go and why. And Brett, I'll let you kick it off. You've been talking my ear off about two teams in particular that I know you want to see.
Yeah, no, I think that the matchup of the first round is going to be Denver Clippers. Just because I think they both have really interesting storylines going into with the Clippers being one of the more underrated teams this year, with not anyone really knowing what Kawhi is going to be
Right.
like come playoff season.
Right.
And I think with Denver, you've got the firing of Mike Malone, which is still kind of just hanging over the heads. And
Yeah.
you've got Jokic, and will their supporting cast step up to make them contenders again? So I think between those two teams, there's a lot of motivation in those franchises to get to the next round. And I think whatever franchise loses, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the offseason with those teams.
Yeah. Calvin Booth was the GM of the Nuggets. He and I played together in Milwaukee. It was kind of a surprise to see that happen for a team that had won a championship. Have had some ups and downs this year, getting ready to go to the playoffs, and you get rid of the coach and the GM. So it was really strange to see. A little disarray that's going on there, but to match up against a team like the Clippers, one thing I have to say, man, like when Kawhi sits down to get healthy, he sits down to get healthy, and they allow him to get healthy. And damn it, when he gets healthy, he gets healthy.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it's like he turned that switch on, and now he's ready to rock. So
he's amazing.
It's been. I think they ended the year like 18-3 or something like that. So to have a team that's a lot stronger than what it has seen, and then to have him to still come along and be that dynamic that soon. It's going to be interesting to see, what happens with this with that series. Whoever gets the first one at home, I think is going to complete that one. So
yeah,
we're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Kawhi in the playoffs does equal scary, but James Harden.
Oh, wow.
Well, one of the matchups I'm most excited about is the Detroit Pistons, who have had a fantastic year. I mean, these are some dogs, right? Kind of reminiscent of some Pistons of old with their attitude and their flair, going up against the New York Knicks, who I'm sure at this point in the season are run into the ground by Thibodeau. Nothing he loves more than playing his guys 40+ minutes a game, but they've got a really nice roster. Obviously, Cat's fitting really well there. And I think in theory, Knicks are an easier choice, but Detroit is going to give them problems. And there are going to be some issues with physicality. There's going to be some issues. I think when they go back to Detroit, if Cade can have the type of games he needs to get other people involved and be assertive, where New York's going to struggle a little bit. But overall, I think that's just a good tester series for both teams. We'll probably learn a lot about who the Detroit Pistons are. And it's been really fun to watch their growth. And I got the chance to see Jalen Duren live a couple of years ago, and that's a man amongst men. And he was 21 at the time. I mean, the guy's a freak. So that's the series I'm most looking forward to. What about you, Marcus? Which one's got kind of your excitement up?
I don't really get excited about as a player or an ex-player. When I'm playing, I want to sweep everybody. When I'm watching, I want everything to go to Game 7 because the season goes longer. I'm extremely impressed and pleased with the play-in. It really does give teams, that extra edge to if they've had some issues, be able to sneak in. I'm disappointed in what my Bulls did the other night because being 3-0 against being 3-0 against the Heat all season long. I remember I sat down on the couch the other night to watch the game, and I just had this feeling like I think we're gonna lose this one. But you don't want to think that. But losing at that rate how it was, I was like and my wife was like, yeah, that made you. I said, yeah, that really pissed me off. I didn't expect us to lose like that.
Yeah.
So being able to watch the play-in happen, teams can change, a position 1 or 2, and that can change a lot of things for them. So other than that, the matchups. I mean, everyone is always going to talk about the Lakers and the Timberwolves and what that matchup is going to be. I think the Lakers with LeBron and Luka. LeBron really knows how to pace himself. He really knows how to take over and be at the spots that he needs to be in, and Luka can catch fire at any moment. Austin Reeves is really one that I remember him in college at Oklahoma, and I remember him not getting drafted. And I said, that kid gets in, he's going to have a great career because you can just tell talent he can play. But like I said, nevertheless, overall, I want because I'm a huge football fan, and once you have a lot of games you can see in football, and in basketball at this time you really can't see that many games. And when they're spread out, like you guys said, the play-in concludes this weekend, and I keep looking at my watch like, man, when is the next game going to come on? So I don't like when they're spread out like that. I like when there's a lot of games, kind of like March Madness when the tournament first started. You got so many games, so just very excited about seeing the guys compete. I play with the Oklahoma City organization, so I'm excited to see what those guys are able to do. Being such a young team, but it's always wide open.
Yeah, you love ball. I get it. You want to see more hoops. I understand that for sure. It's kind of a letdown whenever it's over, right?
I'm gonna put the press on. So we're gonna start off. What was your favorite team growing up as a child?
Detroit Pistons. I'm from Detroit.
Oh, cool.
So the Bad Boys Pistons, I was hoping there was a time or two in between, a couple years in Chicago. Joe Dumars was trying to, get me to Chicago. I know him from Louisiana and some other different places or whatever. He said, you should think about, but I wanted to being close to home. Growing up watching the team. Remember, back in the '80s as a kid with the T-shirts and all that. My older brother, so they definitely was my favorite team. The Bulls is the Bulls, MJ and everyone else there, but definitely the Bad Boy Pistons.
Cool. Has anything changed since childhood? What team do you currently follow the closest?
Oh, I always follow the closest the organizations that I was part of. The Bulls, the Bucks, the Hornets, which is the Pelicans organization, and the Oklahoma City organization. So I'm always going to first and foremost pull for them. Love watching Giannis play. Would have loved to have played with him in Milwaukee. But just always pulling for the younger guys.
Yeah.
But do have a couple of the favorites that I like to see. The Lakers play. I love seeing different things that LeBron does at this age, man. People talk about the longevity now, and I'm like, that's all we ever heard as athletes is getting longevity. But so many people hate LeBron, so now he's in year 2022. They want to talk about different stuff about steroids, and I'm like, it's just the craziest stuff imaginable. If I could have done it, if a lot of other players could have played 22 years, I'm sure they would have. So.
Yeah. All right. How about who was your favorite player as a kid?
Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway. I just loved him, being a 6'7", 6'8" point guard. The way he handled the ball, the way he moved, the way he shot over the top, he made me want to shoot better. I was a lot skinnier in high school than I, eventually, like when I went to college, I was like 197, 198.
Oh,
I was like 245 before I stood foot on the basketball court from lifting weights and eating and all those different things, turning into a power forward or whatever. So as, a high school player, really not knowing, just playing basketball. I was bigger, more athletic than everybody, McDonald All-American, so I could play anywhere on the court I wanted to in high school, not knowing what the position was. So he was definitely my favorite player.
Very cool. Is there a player that you like most in today's current NBA?
Player, younger or older? Should I?
I don't know. I'd say anyway. Who's your favorite player right now?
It would probably be between Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Good picks. Good
pick. Anthony, I think he's kind of like pacing and don't really want to take the torch because he sees all of the what that can get because he can play. Shai is just, there's nothing you can absolutely like. I watch and observe players. I like when players have more than just playing ability, but when they can get to you can get to your spot and score the ball and do it, and can't nobody. Because I remember playing against Kobe and watching Raja Bell play against Kobe, and then man, Raja was like, I'm talking about right here, and Kobe jab step to the elbow, straight up, straight down, bottoms. It don't matter what you do, how good you contest it. Ron Artest contesting them the same way, poking them in the eyes. He get to a spot. So players just like that, I really love to see them, on the court and do big things for sure.
Awesome. All right, now you can feel free not to answer this if you don't want to speak bad about anybody. But who is the most overhyped player that played while you were in the league? Who do you think was the most like getting into the league? You're like, oh man, this guy's great. And then you're playing, you're like, oh, he's not that good.
That's hard to say. I don't typically like to say like overhyped or anything like that. But one thing that I have to say I was disappointed in is the strength that I thought Ben Wallace had. Like my first time playing against him. Like one of the things I used to do as a strong, power forward or whatever, I'm always gonna test my opponents. Like I'm gonna test the referees. I'm gonna slam somebody to the floor, posting or whatever, see if they call it, whatever, see how you responds against me. Or when we coming down the court and I'm on defense and you kind of coming up, I put my hand right into your chest.
Yeah.
And And so we got into the locker room at halftime. I said to Antonio Davis, I was like, man, I thought Ben, he was like, yeah, I thought he was stronger than that. And, even though he's strong, it's a difference in, you know, like a Danny Fortune. Like I
Yeah.
remember playing against Danny Fortune, he was just a load to just try to. It's a different type of a strength. You have guys that are
Yeah.
like muscle strength and overall strength. And so that's probably was the biggest disappointment that I was like, I thought it was a lot stronger than that, easier to move around and things. Even though he's phenomenal, as a player and everything like that, I was able to do, back him down, shoot over the top, even though he's a shot blocker, because I was, overall stronger than him.
Oh, that's really interesting. What about who was low key better than you thought? Like you go in the league, you're like, oh man, this guy's actually really good. I didn't know he was that good.
Oh, there was quite a few guys like that. Quite a few guys like that. I mean, it's too many to name. And I can go back to my rookie year. I remember playing against Chris Gatlin in Cleveland,
That's a
and Chris
great
gave me
ball.
15 points in the first quarter. Like I just couldn't, and then that's when you realize, like, man, this league is so much different. The levels is so much higher. And Chris wasn't like a high scorer or anything like that. But, as a young player, you go to mouth and off, and the referees let the vets get away with a little bit more than they naturally would do to teach you a lesson. So you run into a lot of guys like that that you wouldn't think will have a lot of talent or a lot of scoring ability that would turn it on, with the flick of a switch.
How about this, Marcus? What was your welcome to the league moment? You're like, oh man, this is the big boys.
Um, when I found out against, one of my idols, Karl Malone.
Mm.
We're from the same area in Louisiana. Matter of fact, he lives about 10 miles away from my hometown, back in Richmond, Louisiana now. But I remember I had a good game against some first half. I was, isolation and talking and shooting over the top, blowing by him. I mean, because he had gotten older.
Yeah.
And so the referees was, telling me to calm it down a little bit, calm down a little bit. And, Karl was pretty much coasting. Man, we got into the second half. I'm talking about in third quarters. Fouls just start coming from everywhere. And ones, and ones, and ones. And then I had my fifth foul. He locked my arm up under his arm while I'm guarding him. And he fell like into me. And I stepped back. And as soon as I heard the whistles, the referee came up and pointed towards me. I said, listen, I know I'm strong, but I'm not as strong as Karl. And that was my sixth foul. But after the game, us knowing each other from Louisiana and everything like that. And after the game, he chewed me out. Oh, he chewed me out. And, he just gave me a lot of a vet talking. And it's like, don't you ever, talk to me like, just being like that big brother
Yeah,
type
yeah.
thing. And I understood right then and there, this is a different league, a different type of mentality, the respect to have and everything like that. So that definitely was my, welcome to the league moment.
Awesome. Hey, when did you know you had a shot at making the league? What was that moment like?
Um, I think more it became a more of a reality like my junior year. Like I heard a lot of whispers after my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, but back then, like we're still just focused on being kids and being collegiate athletes. You didn't even think about it. I began to get a lot more. You start hearing about GMs and scouts and stuff being in the stands. And again, even my junior year, I was just, playing basketball. I wanted to win a national championship so bad I wasn't even thinking about, that next level and it being a reality. But it became more of a reality, I guess, as we got closer to March Madness, and then all the scoutings and stuff started coming out. But I still was focused on playing basketball at Iowa State and winning the national championship. And ultimately, I didn't make my decision to go to the draft until the season was over. My parents' house burned down, and they hadn't even told me anything about it. You got to remember, this is 2000. We didn't have iPhones or cell phones barely had came out. So I had a dorm room phone. If I wasn't in the dorm, then can nobody hit me on internet or anything like that. So our house burned down like in February, and it wasn't until we lost out of the tournament that anyone in the family had told me about it. And my parents had been staying out of a hotel, and that pretty much solidified the decision that I was going to leave. Then otherwise, I was coming back for my senior year.
Hmm. Interesting.
Sounds like Brett and I's path to the NBA almost, right?
Yeah,
Except
very similar.
we were so locked in our senior year of high school to win the state title, we weren't really focused on the NBA just yet.
Oh man. All right. Well, I got one more question for you, Marcus. And then the press will be done. So if you could maybe just go back and change one thing that happened in your NBA career, like go
Um,
back in time and be like, oh, that's not happening. What would you have changed?
well, the professionalism side of it all, like one of the things people don't understand is how much free time that you have as a pro athlete. I didn't approach it necessarily as much as I should have as a job. End up, the only injuries I ever had was tear my ACL. I tore my ACL 3 times in my right knee. And just the rehab and everything that I should have taken with that approach. You get up, have practice, say practice is at 11 o'clock. You up at, 8:30, 9 o'clock. You're at the gym by 10, taped and everything ready to go. Then NBA practices are I don't want to say they're easy, but they are easy because you got so many games, so much running and everything like that. So you get in and do what you have to do. Probably going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours. So 1 o'clock, you're done. But the extra stuff like getting in the extra shots, getting in the extra treatment, coming back later at night, probably, getting on the treadmill or doing a pull workout, that type stuff. Again, like I said, I mean, I think I was drafted with 6, 7 guys. So we were 6 to 7 rookies or young guys. 3 guys were drafted a year before me. So we really didn't have any kind of real guidance. And having that much money so fast in a city like Chicago, like a lot of things that you want to do, family coming in, you spend a lot of good time eating stuff that you probably shouldn't eat. So like it's kind of like goes to the thing with Zion Williamson. I understand like, you know, the different things that he is going through now. Maybe not having family or the right people in his ear to tell him the right things to do, and so he's been struggling with his performances and doing well down there in New Orleans. So, if anything, that will be it. Making sure that I treated it like a job, like put in 6 to 8 hours if I had to, and I just didn't approach that the right way, and so therefore, the years that I got into the league, I finished up overseas, which was a lot of hard basketball. I made a lot of good money, but it still wasn't the path that I foresee my career being. But if it's something that I had to go through to teach my sons a different way, my oldest son is playing pro ball over in Europe now, and so DJ is there at CSI. So hopefully, the things that I've learned I could turn around for them in their future.